Number 10. Call of Duty Ghosts. In Call of Duty Ghosts, players will take the role of Hesh in the Ghost military outfit. However, Hesh won't remain the character's final name, as Infinity Ward's executive producer, Mark Rubin, states that Hesh will stay as a placeholder until the studio decides on something more suitable. Mark Rubin explained that the name comes from a skater term that the studio used throughout development. As for the overall story, Infinity War informed Gamefront that America continues to fight a war with the South American Federation of Countries. America's crippled state and the Federation's access to resources allowed the Federation to become a world superpowers in the year 2023. As for weaponry, Call of Duty Black Ops 2 took place only 2 years after, but did not face a catastrophic event to delay scientific advancement. Number 9. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Patriots. When Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Patriots was first revealed, by accident, I might add, in target footage, many felt uneasy with the content. The trailer showed a group of men taking a wealthy man's family hostage and strapping him up with high explosives. In addition to the threat of physical and sexual violence to his wife, the man was driven to a bridge. Whereupon the viewer then assumes the role of one of the members of Rainbow Six, an elite counterterrorist organization sent to deal with the issue. Upon killing the hostage takers after a prolonged shootout on the bridge, the player finds the hostage and is forced to kick him off the bridge instead of disarming the explosive. Needless to say, the whole scenario didn't go down easy with many of its viewers, which found the morality of the player's actions questionable. Number 8. Battlefield 4. It should come as no surprise that EA has plans to continue the Battlefield series, especially with the success of the third game, which was released last year. Word of the game's development surfaced when EA revealed to users who bought Medal of Honor Warfighter that they would have the opportunity to participate in a beta test for Battlefield 4. Beyond the fact that DICE is developing Battlefield 4 instead of any other game, much to the chagrin of everyone who wants a sequel to Mirror's Edge, little else is known about the title, except that it will offer more wide-open areas for players to fight in, and that it may be in development as a next-gen title for the next Xbox and PS4 in 2013. Number 7. Killzone Mercenary. Killzone Mercenary, touted as Beta's killer app, will pit players in a deadly firefight where players fight alongside the ISA and Helghast. The multiplayer will support up to 8 players competing on 6 different maps. In the multiplayer, you will find Shoreline, a fishing village positioned on a low cliff, which then requires players to not mistakenly walk off the edge. The fights on the inlet map will take place on the Corinth River, where the ISA invaded the Helghast. For some more vertical firefights, the Zenith map sits near the open top of a smokestack, where players can ride lifts to the control room of a large arc cannon firing into the atmosphere. Number 6. XCOM. XCOM is a reimagining of the XCOM franchise, which was recently revisited in Firaxis XCOM, Enemy Unknown. Set in the 1950s instead of the early 2000s, players take on the role of an FBI agent sent to investigate strange sightings of aliens, who, as it later becomes apparent, are poised to take over the Earth. The US government then forms a unit known as XCOM to investigate the extraterrestrial invaders and repel them. This 1950s-influenced game appears to share influences from the likes of the X-Files and the sci-fi series Dark Skies. The game is currently in development at the studio which created BioShock 2. So expect to see a lot of RPG-like elements in the game, in addition to some amount of resource management and team-based elements like Mass Effect. Number 5. Hawken. Hawken is a first-person shooter that's different from every other game on this list. Instead of taking the role of a soldier or of a single man, players take on the role of a mech pilot who controls a giant mechanized robot, not unlike the classic MechWarrior games from Activision. Unlike those relatively slow-paced games, Hawken will offer an intense, fast-paced experience while retaining the feeling of controlling a gigantic mech. Primarily developed for multiplayer, Hawken takes place in a dystopian human-colonized planet industrialized to the point of collapse, in which the hunt for resources has become a battle for survival. 4 game modes are planned for release: Team Deathmatch, Free-for-all Deathmatch, Siege, and another yet specified unique team game mode. Like the Mech Warrior series, players will be able to control a mech from 3 mech classes: a heavy type, a light type, and a versatile all-rounder. Number 4. Metro: Last Light. Metro: Last Light is the sequel to Metro 2033, a Russian post-apocalyptic game set in the ruins of post-nuclear Moscow. The first game emphasized survival against mutants of unknown origins, also known as Dark Ones, and the use of nuclear weapons against their nest to protect what was left of mankind. In the midst of the player's mission with the Rangers, we were introduced to various factions of survivors, including communists and neo-Nazis, all of whom are attempting to retake the city and assimilate other groups of survivors, often by force. With the Dark Ones seemingly out of the picture, the various factions have come to a head and the city of Moscow is plunged into all-out war, which is where the player enters the picture. Expect more post-apocalyptic goodness with strong elements of horror and first-person shooter combat in Metro: Last Light. Number 3. Arma III. Arma III is the 3rd game in Bohemia Interactive's series of realistic first-person shooters. It's the closest thing you'll get to a lifelike military experience short of washing APCs and shining uniform boots. There's life-sized battlegrounds, one-hit kills, and all sorts of logistical considerations that make the game a seriously enjoyable experience for serious gamers who want more out of their shooters. Arma 3, like its predecessors, is set to deliver a world-class military experience that you won't find outside of the Arma and previously Operation Flashpoint franchise. Is it any surprise that the makers of Arma also worked on the aforementioned game? Number 2. Crysis III. Crysis III offers a return to the open-world environments of the original Crysis, which had been discarded for a much more linear experience in its sequel. Though the sequel wasn't a bad game, it was maligned for its lack of open-ended maps and close-quarters battles, which were 2 elements that no fan of the Far Cry and Crysis series ever expected to see in the game. Rather than making a Call of Duty clone, Crytek intends to take the series back to its roots and deliver an open-world environment, in this case, a New York City overrun by jungle. Taking on the role of Prophet once again, players will stalk through a variety of terrain with a host of armaments at their disposal, including a powerful composite bow, where they'll have to face some mercenary operatives and intelligent aliens alike. And finally, Number 1. BioShock Infinite. BioShock Infinite is the 3rd game in the BioShock series, and is set outside of the underwater city of Rapture, aboard the flying city of Columbia, taking place several decades before the events of the first 2 games. Infinite presents a what-if scenario. What if America built a flying city inhabited by Patriots, to live out the ideal of an exceptionalist America way back in the 1900s? BioShock Infinite is an attempt to answer that question staged aboard the flying city. All is not well with the city, however, as it finds itself in the midst of a civil revolution between a xenophobic Tea Party-like faction and communist anarchists who believe in opening the city's gates by any means necessary. The scenario weighs heavily upon the current war of ideology between Tea Partiers and the Occupy movement and Anonymous. Beyond having an extensively well-developed setting, BioShock Infinite is also set to offer first-person combat with weaponry from the 1900s and magical abilities not unlike the plasmids in the first 2 BioShock games. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more.